Welcome to the greatest magic show on Earth. It doesn't happen in Las Vegas, and there are no white rabbits. It happens every first Friday of the month at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, issued by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's called the Employment Situation Report, but you might know it by its stage name, The Big Fat Lie. Meet Joe. Joe is a stickman. Joe is currently staring at his bank account balance, which has the same structural integrity as a wet paper bag. Joe is stressed. He's eating generic brand cereal with water because milk has become a luxury asset. But then Joe turns on the news. A guy in a $4,000 suit, with teeth whiter than a fresh sheet of Excel paper, tells Joe to cheer up. Why? Because the unemployment rate is 4%, the economy is robust, job growth is resilient. Joe looks at the TV, then at his water cereal, and realizes something. Either the TV is hallucinating, or Joe is no longer a part of reality. Here's the secret: Joe isn't crazy, he's just a victim of the metric mask. To understand why the 4% unemployment rate is a fairy tale, we have to look at how the government defines unemployed. In the world of official statistics, unemployed doesn't mean not having a job. It's much more exclusive than that. To be officially unemployed, you have to be actively looking for work within the last 4 weeks. If you've been looking for a job for 6 months, failed 200 interviews, and finally decided to lie on your floor in a dark room and contemplate the futility of existence for 5 weeks, congratulations. According to the government, you are no longer unemployed. You have simply left the labor force. You've pulled a Houdini. You still don't have a job, you still can't pay rent, but as far as the Bureau is concerned, you've vanished into thin air. Since 2020, over 1.6 million Americans have performed this disappearing act. They didn't find jobs, they just stopped being data points. When the media brags about a 4% unemployment rate, they are conveniently ignoring the millions of ghosts who aren't counted simply because they've lost hope. It's a great way to keep the numbers down. If you stop counting the people who are suffering, the suffering technically doesn't exist. It's the "if I close my eyes, the monster can't see me" school of economics. But wait, there's more. Let's talk about job growth. The headlines love to scream about 200,000 jobs added this month. It sounds like a celebration. It sounds like progress. But for Joe the Stickman, it's a horror story. See, the government's data doesn't distinguish between a high-paying, full-time career with health insurance and a gig where you deliver lukewarm burritos to people too lazy to leave their houses. In fact, the math is actually rigged in favor of misery. Imagine a guy named Bob. Bob had a solid corporate job making $80,000 a year. One job. Then the robust economy happened, and Bob got laid off. To survive, Bob now drives for a rideshare app in the morning and flips burgers at night. In the real world, Bob is exhausted, depressed, and earning 40% less than he used to. But in the world of statistics, the economy just created 2 jobs. The headline reads, "Employment surges as labor market remains tight." We are systematically replacing full-time, stable careers with fragmented, low-security gigs. We are trading one sturdy brick for 3 handfuls of sand and calling it a growth in building materials. The metric mask takes Bob's desperation and paints it as flexibility. Then we have the holy grail of metrics, the gross domestic product. The GDP is essentially the score of the country. If it goes up, we're winning. If it goes down, we're losing. But GDP is a very dumb number. It measures spending, not well-being. If you get into a car accident, the GDP goes up because of the repairs, the medical bills, and the insurance payout. If a hurricane levels a town, the GDP goes up because of the reconstruction costs. In today's economy, the GDP is staying high because Joe is forced to spend more money just to stay in the same place. When the price of eggs doubles, Joe is contributing more to the GDP. When Joe has to take out a high-interest predatory loan to fix his car so he can get to his 3 part-time jobs, the GDP cheers. The metric mask looks at Joe's frantic, debt-fueled spending and calls it consumer strength. It's like looking at a man running for his life from a bear and saying, Look at that impressive cardio. He must be very health conscious. No, he's just trying not to die. The gap between the official economy and the lived economy has become a canyon. On one side, you have the guys in suits looking at green lines on a screen. On the other side, you have Joe staring at a box of generic cereal. The mask is beautiful. The face underneath is starting to look a lot like a recession that no one has the courage to name yet. So if the car is smoking and the wheels are falling off, why hasn't the NBER, the National Bureau of Economic Research, pulled over and called it a recession? Well, because they don't work in real time. They work in hindsight time. Asking the NBER if we're in a recession is like asking a coroner if you're sick. By the time they give you an answer, the body is already cold, and the relatives have moved on to fighting over the inheritance. Historically, the NBER waits anywhere from 6 to 18 months to officially declare a recession. Why? Because they need comprehensive data confirmation. They want to be absolutely sure the fire is real before they ring the alarm, even if the entire building has already burned to the ground. In 2008, the world was already ending. Lehman Brothers was a memory. And people were living in their cars before the experts looked up from their clipboards and said, "Oh, hey, looks like a recession started a year ago. Our bad." We are currently living in that dead zone. The data is lagging, but your life isn't. If the jobs are worse and the wages are stagnant, how are people still buying stuff? The news anchors point to strong consumer spending as proof that everything is fine. But they're looking at the volume of the spending, not the source. Americans aren't spending money because they have it. They're spending money because they've been handed a plastic shovel and told to keep digging. Credit card debt just hit a record $1.28 trillion. That's not a sign of a strong consumer. That's the sound of a population using 22% interest rate loans to buy groceries. This is the plastic poison. It's a temporary solution that creates a terminal problem. We are sustaining our 2019 lifestyles with 2026 debt. The metric mask looks at a record-breaking Christmas shopping season and calls it resilience. But if you look behind the mask, you'll see Joe the Stickman sweating as he swipes his 5th credit card just to buy a pair of shoes for his kid. It's an illusion of wealth built on a foundation of high-interest sand. And as the personal savings rate plummets to levels we haven't seen since right before the 2008 crash, the sand is starting to shift. This brings us to the core reason why the metric mask exists. It's a psychological trap called Goodhart's Law. It states when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Think about it. If a cobra catching bounty is offered to reduce the number of cobras in a city, people will start breeding cobras in their basements just to sell them to the government. The metric goes up, but the reality gets much, much worse. The government has made low unemployment and high GDP its targets. So they've optimized the system to hit those numbers at any cost. They've changed the definitions, they've massaged the seasonal adjustments, and they've ignored the quality of life behind the digits. They are breeding cobras. They are giving you 3 part-time jobs and calling it full employment. They are counting your debt-fueled grocery, run as economic growth. They've won the game on the scoreboard, but the stadium is on fire. Eventually, the mask will slip. It always does. The leading economic index has already declined for months. Commercial bankruptcies are spiking. The check engine light isn't just flickering anymore. It's glowing red hot. In a year or two, the suit and tie experts will walk onto a stage, adjust their glasses, and solemnly announce that the Great Correction actually began way back in 2025. They'll act like it's a discovery. They'll act like they're giving you news, but you'll already know. You'll know because you lived through it. You'll know because you were the one who had to choose between gas and health insurance, while the TV told you the labor market was tight. So what do? We stop looking at the mask. If the headlines say the economy is great, but your rent just went up 30% and your raise was a $10 Starbucks gift card, trust your bank account, not the teleprompter. The real economy isn't a series of dots on a graph in DC, it's the price of a gallon of milk. It's the security of your 401k. It's whether or not you can sleep at night without wondering if your gig will exist tomorrow. The metric mask is designed to keep you quiet, keep you spending, and keep you compliant until the experts find a way to blame the crash on something else. Don't be blindsided. Look at the clues. Look at the debt. Look at the ghosts leaving the workforce. Because the only way to survive a recession that isn't happening is to prepare for the one that already is. The economy isn't a spreadsheet, it's a heartbeat. And right now, it's skipping beats,